Welcome to the channel. Today we dive into a captivating and enigmatic tale surrounding Hollywood icon Gene Hackman. Despite his iconic roles and an unparalleled career, Gene Hackman's legacy goes beyond wealth and fame. Behind the fortune lies a family torn apart, broken trust, and long-hidden secrets. In today's video, we'll uncover the treasure Gene Hackman left behind and why it brought his family to tears. Stay tuned to reveal secrets about his life and legacy that have never been shared before. Gene Hackman didn't leave in peace. Instead, he left behind a fortune that could shake a family to its core. Over $80 million in cash, real estate, stocks, and hidden investments that no one dared to speak of. But behind those staggering figures lies a nightmare that's unraveling every family bond. Each dollar Hackman left didn't just buy mansions and priceless art. It bought dark secrets, late-night calls, and unsent desperate letters. That money became fear, betrayal, and shattered dreams. Gene Hackman didn't leave a legacy. He left a curse. Gene Hackman was once a timeless Hollywood icon, in a world where even the brightest stars are eventually forgotten, but even legends fade into the night. In his later years, Hackman chose a path far from the public's grand image of him. No farewell parties, no tearful goodbyes, no memoirs unveiling hidden truths. Gene Hackman quietly slipped away from Hollywood, vanishing without a trace. If you found Gene Hackman's story captivating and emotional, hit the like button and share this video with your friends. Drop a comment below to share your thoughts on the legacy he left behind and its impact on his family. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more gripping stories and videos. New Mexico was no stranger to Gene Hackman. Since the 1980s, he had a home in Santa Fe, a secluded haven far from Hollywood's bright lights. The winding red dirt roads, dark pine forests, and howling winds at dusk set the perfect stage for a star to quietly close the final chapter of his life. Locals often whispered about the tall, elderly man with deep wrinkles, seen cycling around the hills every day. "He looked like someone I've seen before," a grocery store clerk once said, but no one could place him. Gene Hackman seemed to blend into the town, a quiet shadow among the elderly living out their final years in peace. Hollywood tried to pull him back with tempting offers from eager young directors and scripts tailored just for him, but nothing could penetrate the wall of silence he'd built around himself. "I've said everything I needed to say," he replied in a rare interview. At 90, Hackman no longer cared about fame or fortune. All he sought was peace, a luxury he had never known amid the chaos of movie sets. But that silence wasn't entirely by choice. Rumors began to swirl, and the darker aspects of Hackman's life slowly emerged through whispers from those closest to him. His health was deteriorating faster than anyone expected. Fleeting heart attacks, unnoticed falls as he rode his bike down the street. The Gene Hackman of his final years was a mere shadow of the legend he once was. Hackman's family, according to unnamed sources, wasn't as perfect as it seemed. He had 3 children from his first marriage to Faye Maltese, which lasted 30 years before ending in a bitter divorce. His daughter, Elizabeth Hackman, publicly spoke about her father's emotional distance. Fame consumed all the time he should have spent with the family. He was always working, always somewhere else. Despite providing full financial support, Hackman's relationship with his children was never truly healthy. Family dinners, teaching them to ride bikes, or reading bedtime stories were nothing but fantasies for his kids. The neglect that built up over the years created an irreparable distance. Even after Hackman remarried Betsy Arakawa, a pianist 30 years his junior, the tension with his children remained. Close sources revealed that his decision to live in seclusion wasn't just for rest. It was a way to escape the simmering conflicts within his family. Family gatherings became infrequent, phone calls grew brief, and even Christmas was no longer a time for reunion. Hackman never said it outright, but those close to him knew he feared the disappointment in his children's eyes. He tried to make amends with money, property, and lavish gifts sent from the West Coast to his children's cities. Yet, like the characters he once portrayed, money couldn't buy what mattered most: connection and forgiveness. The distance between them grew wider when Hackman fully retired from Hollywood in 2004 after his final role in Welcome to Mooseport. There were no goodbyes with colleagues, no farewell party from the studios that once saw him as their golden goose. Hackman disappeared like a passing wind, leaving only whispers of a solitary and stubborn legacy. Hackman's final years in Santa Fe were like a void, isolated from the world. He spent most of his time in a small wooden house, reading, writing, and sketching landscapes. Those fortunate enough to cross his path at the local grocery store or gas station described him as a thin man with deep, unmistakable eyes and a sharp gaze. It was said that Hackman enjoyed sitting alone on his porch, watching sunsets and sketching the distant mountains. These were likely the rare moments he felt truly free. No camera flashes, no false praise, no complicated relationships, just him, the wind, and his unspoken thoughts. Even more unsettling were the rumors about a secret personal fund Hackman established in the mid-90s. No one knew exactly how it operated, where the money came from, or its true purpose. Among the documents uncovered, a handwritten letter from Hackman to himself surfaced, resembling a financial journal. The letter read, "I built this not to leave behind wealth, but to leave behind control." This chilling statement haunted his children, revealing one undeniable truth. Gene Hackman never wanted his money to fall into anyone else's hands, not even his own family's. As rumors about Hackman's health spread, the Hollywood media began to search for the final pieces of his story. Some claimed Hackman had secretly written a will years ago, dividing his assets into hidden accounts to prevent any disputes. Others speculated he'd established an anonymous charity, quietly funneling most of his fortune as a form of atonement for abandoning his children. The less Hackman appeared, the more he became the subject of conspiracy theories and fabricated stories. Yet in his small house in Santa Fe, he peacefully spent his final days, leaving behind not only a legendary career but also mysteries that lingered long after his eyes closed. Gene Hackman wrote his own ending, leaving the world in a way no one could have predicted. The news of his passing came on a gray morning, before the sun had a chance to rise over the red peaks of New Mexico. It was quiet, without fanfare, much like his reclusive life in the last 2 decades. But when that brief notice appeared in a local newspaper, it sent ripples through both Hollywood and Hackman's own family, where secret doors that had been tightly shut for years suddenly swung open. Hackman's family had never fully grasped the extent of his wealth. With his image as a Hollywood legend, a 2-time Oscar winner who had walked the most prestigious red carpets, no one doubted he possessed a fortune. But just how vast that fortune was, where it was hidden, and how it had been concealed remained mysteries even to his closest relatives. Hackman's secrecy and reclusive nature weren't merely quirks. They were an art, one he mastered perfectly until his final breath. At first, his family thought everything would be simple. A handwritten will, notarized in 2001, was found, listing clear assets like the house in Santa Fe, a bank account in California, and a vintage Hudson Hornet Hackman had kept since his youth. The total value was estimated at under $5 million, a sum that seemed small compared to his fame and legendary career. But as they sifted through more old documents and uncovered seemingly anonymous bank accounts, a completely different story began to unfold. It turned out Gene Hackman's name wasn't confined to the world of cinema. Since the 1990s, at the height of his career, Hackman had been constructing a complex financial network tied to real estate, stocks, anonymous investment funds, and money quietly transferred overseas. Hackman wasn't just a brilliant actor, he was also a master at concealing assets within the financial world. The first person to uncover this clue was the family's lawyer, an elderly man who had worked with Hackman since the 1970s. Among the dusty papers found in a wooden chest in the Santa Fe storage, handwritten letters and internal memos detailing a series of secret transactions were discovered. Investments in emerging tech companies, land in Nevada's suburbs, solar funds in New Mexico, everything was registered under shell companies with no direct links to Hackman. But as they traced the transactions, each dollar led to one account. The original account Hackman set up in 1993, right after winning his second Oscar. The total value of the assets, after piecing together all the clues, was estimated to exceed $80 million, a sum that shocked even his closest friends. But what truly stunned his family wasn't the amount of money, but how Hackman had hidden it all these years. No one knew exactly how he did it, with whom, or why he chose such secrecy. In some of the covert transactions, Hackman had used aliases through trust accounts set up in Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore. The biggest question remains: why did Gene Hackman hide his assets from his own family? Was it a lack of trust, or are there deeper secrets yet to be uncovered? A theory began to spread, not from the press, but from within Hackman's own family. The children, raised in the emotional distance of their famous father, now realized they had never truly understood him. Hackman wasn't just emotionally distant, he was also detached when it came to finances, as if fearing that revealing even a fraction of his wealth would lead to endless disputes. So he built walls, impenetrable financial layers, ensuring that even his own children would never have access. The discovery of this secret fund immediately sparked covert investigations. Lawyers, financial experts, and even private detectives were hired to track it down, but all of them hit dead ends. Gene Hackman had prepared for this moment long ago. The ghost accounts, the layers of shell companies, the untraceable cash transactions. Every time the family made a step forward, Hackman seemed to be a decade ahead. When the family lawyer officially announced Hackman's estate, most of what was recorded was just the tip of the iceberg: the Santa Fe house, the vintage car, and a few bank accounts. The rest, the real assets, remained hidden in the shadows of financial secrecy known only to Hackman. And now, with his passing, that secret became an unsolvable puzzle for his closest relatives. In those frantic searches, the Hackman family came to a harsh realization. There were times they never truly belonged in Gene Hackman's life. He lived like a solitary legend, loving money in his own way, hiding it as part of his soul, and taking those secrets to the grave. That vast fortune, instead of becoming a family legacy, now stands as the wreckage of a man who chose to abandon everything, even his family, to protect one thing above all else: absolute control. The old wooden door of the Santa Fe house creaked as it opened. Faint yellow light spilled through the threshold, casting shadows over the dusty space, where the smell of rotting wood and old paper mingled with the lingering scent of a home long abandoned. The Hackman family stood in silence before the scene, a frozen world where time had stopped, leaving only shattered fragments of memories scattered across the gray wooden floor. They didn't cry immediately upon hearing of Hackman's death. This loss wasn't just the passing of a father, husband, or grandfather. It felt more like the aftershock of a silent earthquake that had been simmering for years, now erupting and sweeping everything away, from familial bonds and trust to long-buried secrets. That night, sitting around the old wooden table, Gene Hackman's children opened each wooden box and faded envelope they found in the attic corner. No one was prepared for what they were about to discover. Inside the envelopes weren't the will or financial instructions they had hoped for, but handwritten letters, Hackman's familiar shaky handwriting on pages never sent. The first letter, written in the winter of 1995 after Hackman finished filming Crimson Tide, was addressed to Christopher, his eldest son, whom Hackman hadn't spoken to directly in 15 years. It was brief, just a few lines. "I know I was never the father you wanted, but you must understand. I never belonged to anyone, not even my own family." Those words cut into Christopher's heart like a cold knife. He wasn't surprised to read them, but the pain of seeing them on a yellowed piece of paper, instead of hearing them directly from his father, left him breathless. The following letters were filled with memories and regrets. One was addressed to Elizabeth, his youngest daughter, recalling nights spent alone in the living room, watching old family videotapes. Hackman wrote, "I always thought I was protecting you by keeping my distance, wanting you to live without the shadow of my fame hanging over you. But now I wonder if I was just protecting myself." This letter was written on Elizabeth's 30th birthday, yet it had never left the drawer. Each letter felt like a fragment of Hackman's soul, revealing hidden parts of him that no one in the family had ever known. He wasn't just a famous actor or a Hollywood legend. He was also a solitary man, torn between the desire to protect his family and the fear of losing himself in the role of a father. But it wasn't just the letters. The deeper the Hackman family dug into the old drawers, the more pieces of this complex puzzle they uncovered. Mysterious financial agreements, unexplained money transfers, and most troubling of all, a list of secret beneficiaries. Gene Hackman appeared to have created a separate inheritance list, one that included no family members' names. Instead, millions of dollars had been transferred to strangers, a childhood friend in California, a retired assistant from the 1980s, and even a server at Hackman's favorite restaurant in Santa Fe. Why had Hackman chosen them, and why were his own family members excluded? No one could answer, but the shock and outrage flooded the room like crashing waves, drowning each family member in an emotional storm with no escape. It was that night that the first argument broke out. Betsy Arakawa, Hackman's second wife, sat quietly in the corner of the room. Throughout their years together, she had never truly understood the man she called her husband. The week-long disappearances, the rushed phone calls, the sudden trips. Now they all came together, forming a complete picture. Hackman had not only been distant from his children, but he had also built walls even between himself and his life partner. But the emotional earthquake didn't stop there. When the family lawyer revealed the list of secret accounts Hackman had left behind, the entire family was nearly paralyzed. A large portion of his estate, over $20 million, had been transferred to an anonymous charity just months before his death. The organization had no name, no public information, only a cold, cryptic acronym: the GH Legacy Fund. No one knew how this organization operated, where the money would go, or what Hackman's true intentions were, but one thing was certain: Gene Hackman chose to trust strangers over his own family. In the old house, tears fell onto the wooden table, soaking through the old letters. The Hackman family didn't just lose a father, a husband. They lost their final chance to understand, to reconcile, to hear the long overdue apologies. All that remains are tattered letters, faded memories, and a question that will forever go unanswered. Who was Gene Hackman, really? A failed father, or a lonely soul? Until his final breath, some families are born to shine under the spotlight, while others are born to carry the shadow of a legend, a shadow so large and heavy that even with millions in wealth, they never feel any different from being shackled. The Hackman family is a perfect example of that curse. Gene Hackman's name was not only a source of pride for Hollywood, but also a silent obsession for those who carried his bloodline: Christopher and Elizabeth, his two children. Christopher and Elizabeth, raised in the shadow of their father's fame, could never escape the label of being Gene Hackman's kids. Even as adults with their own lives, the name Hackman trailed them like an unshakable shadow. Their father's success didn't inspire them, but rather cast an invisible curse of comparison. Every achievement they made was measured against his Oscars and legendary roles, always falling short, always not enough, and out of reach. And when the secret doors to Hackman's fortune were opened after his death, along with Betsy Arakawa, that burden didn't ease. It became golden chains, shiny but tighter than ever. As the lawyers began reading the will, which spanned hundreds of pages, every word seemed to float in the silent air of the Santa Fe room. The estate, valued at over $80 million, was clearly outlined. Real estate, stocks across California and New Mexico, art collections, vintage cars, and secret investments the family had never known about. But alongside these assets, Hackman left behind a series of strict and daunting inheritance conditions. No family member was allowed to use the name Gene Hackman to write memoirs, make documentaries, or sell personal stories. Publicly disputing the estate in the press was forbidden. Most notably, there was a secret fund, the Untouched Fund, established in the 1990s and kept hidden for over 30 years. No one, not even his wife Betsy, knew its contents. The only clear condition: tampering with this fund would immediately forfeit their right to inherit the rest of the estate. It was a forbidden territory, a sacred space Hackman reserved for himself, symbolizing absolute control even in death. Ironically, during their lives, Hackman and Betsy Arakawa embodied the image of a peaceful marriage. The couple lived in a self-designed wooden house on a 12-acre plot in the Santa Fe Mountains, far from Hollywood scandals. Their longtime friends, Daniel and Barbara Lenahan, still recall the quiet afternoons with Hackman painting, Betsy quietly brewing tea, and both of them contentedly smiling in the vastness of nature, which they called their ideal life. But beneath that peaceful exterior, Hackman never stopped controlling. Betsy herself once told a close friend, "Gene is the perfect husband as long as I don't touch what he calls his personal legacy." That personal legacy wasn't just his film career, it was his control over his own story. No one was allowed to rewrite the history of Gene Hackman, not even his wife or children. When the will was revealed, Christopher almost laughed. He had won. Even in death, Hackman still controlled everything, even their thoughts. Elizabeth, the youngest daughter, the one who always hid behind unfinished paintings, had hoped her father would leave her some freedom. But the cold will crushed that final hope. Not a single line mentioned emotions or personal messages from Hackman, only terms, rules, and threats to revoke inheritance rights. The vast fortune felt like a burden shackling them, pulling them deep into an ocean of expectations where Hackman sat coldly, watching each of his children struggle. Amid all the arguments, rumors about the Untouched Fund began to circulate through Hollywood's inheritance circles. Some speculated that Hackman had secretly moved money into unofficial investments or even set up an anonymous charity under a different name. No one knew for sure, not even Hackman's lawyer, who admitted, "I don't know what he hid in there either." Betsy had tried asking her husband several times, but each time Hackman would respond, "There are things you shouldn't know and our children shouldn't know either." Now, with both of them gone, those hidden things had become an obsession, gnawing at every family member. No one knew whether they should protect that legacy or uncover the secrets Hackman had left behind. Amid the tears and the arguments tearing apart the living room in Santa Fe, a bitter truth emerged. The greatest legacy Hackman left behind was not wealth or fame, but a family fractured beneath the colossal shadow of a legend no one dared to confront. If his roles on screen were just the tip of the iceberg named Gene Hackman, then the drafts, notes, and secret documents discovered after his death were the deep, cold, dark layers submerged in the sea of memories. The upstairs office of Hackman's house, a place no one was allowed to enter for many years, not even Betsy, was finally opened. Behind the oak door lay a world unknown to anyone. Unfinished film scripts, covered in dust from the passage of time. Personal journals with handwriting that was sometimes firm, sometimes trembling, and mysterious financial notes hinting at shady connections to the ghost of old Hollywood's mafia. The unacknowledged scripts were, in fact, the film of Hackman's life. Though a legendary actor, few knew that Hackman had always longed to be a director, not for commercial films, but for a movie about his own life. Among the materials found were at least 3 unfinished scripts, and the final script left Hackman's family speechless. His last confession began with the words, "If there is an afterlife, I want to be born without anyone knowing who I am." This script, according to Hackman's notes, was a thinly veiled autobiography detailing every shadowy corner of his journey, from a poor Marine to an Oscar-winning star, while not shying away from the cracks in his first marriage, the tears of his children, and the secret deals made to keep the Hackman name at the top. Handwritten notes in the margins revealed Hackman seemingly conversing with himself. "Fame sometimes means selling your soul. How many people did I betray to keep the name Gene Hackman?" That script was never sent anywhere. It sank along with dozens of unfinished dreams Hackman never had the courage to turn into reality. In addition to the scripts, the family discovered 4 personal journals spanning from 1995 to 2022. The early pages were filled with sweet memories of Betsy Arakawa, spontaneous trips to Japan, France, and Italy, where Hackman wrote that it was only when he left the United States that he truly felt normal, not Gene Hackman. But as time went on, the writing grew distorted and erratic, with many pages stained with ink, possibly from Hackman's tears or his trembling fingers during the loneliest nights. Hackman loved his children in his own way, but that love was as cold and harsh as the stage lights. He left them everything, except for a gentle hug, a sincere compliment, or a moment where he placed himself on the same level as his children. And when Hackman closed his eyes for the last time, the family understood that the legacy he left behind was heavier than a mountain of gold, for it carried with it expectations, untouchable legacies, and secrets no one dared to uncover. In the eyes of the world, Gene Hackman was an icon, but to his children, he was just a closed-off room, a father defined by movie schedules and contracts. They didn't remember him through fishing trips or cozy dinners, but through magazine interviews, those rare moments of seeing their father on the red carpet, close, yet so distant. Some nights, Christopher Hackman, the eldest son, stayed up late in front of the screen, rewinding and replaying his father's movies, searching for a real glimpse of him behind the roles. But the screen only reflected what Gene Hackman wanted the world to see, not what he truly felt. Hackman wasn't a bad father. He was simply a victim of the glory he had created, lost between being a Hollywood icon and a regular man. Just when everyone thought Hackman's legacy was limited to wealth and fame, one final secret emerged. Hackman had established an anonymous charity with an initial fund of $10 million, dedicating all his film royalties after his death to fund scholarships and build schools for underprivileged children across the United States. The foundation was named The Other Gene, a clever play on words, hinting at Hackman's true self. The poor boy who had been expelled from school, worked as a waiter, and once dreamed of having a pair of shoes to attend school. Hackman wrote in a letter left for his personal lawyer, "If I could live my life over, I would want to start from a place where no one knows I am Gene Hackman. I want to be a normal child with shoes that aren't torn and meals without worrying about tomorrow." In this way, Hackman redeemed the pain of his childhood and sent a final message to his children. I hope you understand that I never forgot who I am, and I hope you will find yourselves without living under anyone else's shadow. The memories of Hackman are not just the photos on the wall, but the scale of what he left behind. The blurred scenes from family movie nights. The glory of a bygone era wrapped Hackman's life in a shimmering halo. But when the Hollywood lights faded, all that remained was the echo of the past, where an old man still wrote letters to his children, knowing they would never be sent. Gene Hackman is gone, but the story of golden drops, tears, and memories that money can't buy remains an unfinished film, waiting for someone else to continue telling. Gene Hackman has gone, leaving behind a mountain of money, but his family is left picking up the shattered pieces of trust, love, and missed opportunities for reconciliation, now reduced to dust. The Oscars statues can be polished, but the wounds in their hearts, nothing can heal. If you found Gene Hackman's story intriguing and moving, don't forget to like and share this video with your loved ones. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the legacy Hackman left behind for his family and the secrets yet to be revealed? If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the exciting videos to come. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next fascinating stories.